And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, dealing with this cursed evening, is my good brother here in the temple, one half of the adventures, and the man behind the monthly tribunal, good brother Monarch.
What would a stream be without technical difficulties?
I know some may look at the lateness and say that we had to deal with scuff. This is not a case of scuff. This is a case of unforeseen consequences. But we are back, fully recovered from the first half of Holiday Hell. We still have New Year's to deal with, but that's easily dealt with, and January 1st is International Hangover Day. But, and I will note that, once again, I managed to avoid getting eggnog as well as getting fruitcake like everybody else.
I've never gotten fruitcake.
The one time we did get it, it was so hard we couldn't eat it, so we figured waste not, want not, and played hockey with it. Although, when using a rotary sander on a overly hard fruitcake, it's best to make sure that you're wearing some sort of padding so that you don't catch strays, because you will. But we are back. I believe this will be the final entrant when it comes to the Gaia complex, at least for the time being. There's always the possibility of something coming up that we have to talk about. But for this last bit, we are handling the gear and tech, basically the equipment section. And what would a cyberpunk game be without talking about cybernetics? And since I'm recovering from all of the shenanigans I had to deal with, which is why we were late, I'll let you handle the talk of cybernetics.
So cybernetics are used by the vast majority of New Europers. I don't like that word. New Europers. And are commonplace with mercs operating the world over. In many cases, not being enhanced means not being taken seriously, particularly if your line of work involves hacking or pointing a gun at people. The following section provides an overview of the most common cybernetics on the streets of New Europe, along with their costs and rules. We've got hack job cybernetics. Many cybernetics are available in a hack job format. These enhancements are effectively back-alley creations made by cyberdocs in the sprawl of the suburbs. Cybernetics purchased through normal channels are registered to the user at point of sale, much like cybernetic fingerprinting tying a limb or eye to the user. Hack job cybernetics get around this by being scratch-built, keeping the user anonymous. The average hack job limb has a more industrial look than Hanser's typical clean designs, patched together from leftover components and other faulty cybernetics. I'll skip over the rest of this little bit just because it's basically a bit more flavor, but that's the overview of hack job cybernetics.
Yeah.
Then we get cybernetic weapons.
Oh, we've got a raid already. We only barely started. Hello there, raiders. For those of you who do not know me, I am Mildred the Monk. I am your one and only gaming monk. And tonight we are covering the final bits of the Gaia Complex TTRPG. After a bit of shenanigans that happened with the streaming setup I was using, but they seem to be stabilized.
We shall see for how long.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the love being sent my way. I welcome any and all people into my monastery. There's just a couple of rules. Follow the golden rule for one, and don't touch my stash. There is a particular drink in the back of the monastery that is specifically for me, and well, somebody wants. And thank you, Zero Hayabusu, for the follow. Hope you enjoy the madness that happens around here. But getting back to where it was, there is one sidebar that I did want to cover regarding hackjob cybernetics. Quote, to avoid repeating the same concepts over and over, hackjob cybernetics can all be considered to use this same basic description. As such, many individual hackjob entries in the following chapter do not have their own unique descriptions. Which is fair. It's better to do that than to have like a dozen or so different individual entries that are all doing the same thing. Now, after that, we do have a bit of fluff on cybernetic weapons, which is exactly what you think it is. They can be very powerful, but they do have the risk of disconnect. And this is where we start getting into the cybernetics proper, starting with cyber arms. And this is where I'm glad that we went into that overview of how equipment is going to work when we covered this last week.
Because it's basically the same setup here.
Mm-hmm. So we start with the high CB01 Cyberarm, which has a disconnect of 3d3 plus 1. Takes up 4 slots. Sorry. Then has its own rules for melee and unarmed attacks, as well as a modifier to climbing, lifting, and throwing skill tests. It also gives a +1 to your brawn stat, and comes with EMP shielding as standard. Costs 2,500 NEC, or +200 for colors other than black or chrome. So we have the Model T approach. What color can you get a Model T in? Any color as long as it's black. Then we have the High Poly Z Cyberarm, which has a disconnect of 3d3, has 3 slots. Has its own modifier for melee and unarmed attacks. You can kind of see the pattern here. There's usually a modifier to melee and unarmed attacks, as well as modifiers to certain skill tests, as well as having a disconnect and having a number of slots that you can put add-ons onto. Like these, to bring people up to speed who weren't here last week, the slots thing, that's not covering how many slots this takes up, it's how many things you can add onto that cybernetic. But we have the High Poly Z forearm if you just want the forearm cyberized, or the cyber hand if you just want the hand cyberized. Why would you want just the hand cyberized? Well, less chrome means less disconnect. And remember, you have a certain amount of disconnect that you are gonna have as a starting character, and you're not getting it back.
Now, there probably isn't really a need to go through each one of these individual, because it's all basically the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
They're all just kind of adjusting the numbers in a different way.
And right after that, we have arm options, which includes things like a palm torch, which functions as a high-powered torch / flashlight. That gives me terrible ideas. The taser grip, which is exactly what it sounds like. And it's like somebody looked at a Joy Buzzer and said, "How can we make this worse?" Because you know somebody's gonna use this and go, "Hey, let's shake on it," and then turns the thing on. Also be really nasty if somebody has martial arts training and they take that, especially wrestling training.
Yeah.
See, then the Gravelin Big Tech Turbo Elbow, which is just meant to be a better arm. Hyperflex joint reinforcement. It's exactly what it sounds like. The magnetic grip. I wonder if having that while having a metal weapon would give you a bonus to resisting disarm.
I mean, if it doesn't specify it does, I'd probably still run it that way.
Mm-hmm. Now, granted, with firearms, that's not going to make much of a difference because a lot of firearms, especially in this era, would be made more of plastic than metal. But, let's see. Storage component, magnetic mount plates, structural reinforcement, and then we have arm weapons. The hot shot pistol, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the Hellfire submachine gun. And for whatever reason, I end up thinking of Vash's hidden gun in Trigun. Yeah. Specifically the second one in the anime that was more like an SMG. I mean, both of them were SMGs. It's just the second one he got was more blatantly trying to look like an Uzi. We have the Hellstorm rocket pod. How's that for a surprise? Especially given the damage it's doing. 1d12 plus 2d3e. With a clip of 8. You have 8 mini rockets. And I do have to read off the quote here. Why carry grenades when you can have 8 premium bang bangs ready and willing to blow the living shit out of anything you can point at? Let's see.
I'll say every one of these modifications I've looked at, they're kind of exactly what you'd want and expect.
Yeah, it's exactly
nothing out there that you wouldn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to have all this here. It's a good variety.
Yeah. Though there is a line of quality between hack job kinds of cybernetics and properly made ones by like Cybernetico or somebody else. The latter are going to be higher quality and better overall, but also more expensive. Of course, a good amount of them are just going to be more expensive, period. I mean, the hack job pop-out pistol costs 300 NEC, whereas the Cybernetico one costs 650. But there's also options for the fingers, including a Derringer finger. I can see some spies taking a look at that. We also
Hazer finger. A lot of these just look like slightly weaker versions of what you do for like the full arm.
Mm-hmm.
But just limited to the hand.
Yeah. So then we have cyber legs, which are gonna work the way you'd expect. But you could also get cyber feet if you want to go that route. That of course is followed by leg options. The magnetic footing one is one I'd probably end up going with because, well, if you're in a warehouse fight, having spider climb is always going to be an advantage.
Look, I always like the skating type things.
Oh, they're nice, but what's even nicer is sneaking up onto the ceiling and then dropping grenades from there.
Or firing them with your Hellfire arms.
Yeah. How many grenades? All of them. But then we have cybernetic leg weapons, including a kick blade, which is nice. Obviously, there's not going to be as many leg weapons as there were arm weapons, because there's only so much you can do with the legs. Then we have cyber eyes, which are exactly what they sound like.
I'm kind of disappointed there's not a cyber, leg shotgun. Who expects a shotgun blast from the bottom of the foot?
Have you been playing Turbo Overkill lately?
No, but I did play or watch Golden Kamuy. and the guy gets a shotgun rigged into his fake leg. That's not even cyberpunk.
I'd also be remiss if I didn't bring
here.
up Planet Terror. You know, from that Grindhouse double feature where you had that girl who had a grenade launcher on her leg. Because why the fuck not? But then we have options for cyber eyes. A lot of them are exactly what you'd think. The one that I probably wouldn't use is the Belvoit Media news feed, because it's annoying seeing news feeds in a regular sense, let alone this
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm. See, then
Just imagine living life with a fucking CNN news banner just at the bottom of everything you see. Like, brain! No. That sounds like a nightmare.
I'm pretty sure that it would be like what happened when Futurama made fun of the made fun of like AR glasses with the iPhone.
Yeah.
Then we have cyber ears. Although some of them aren't full-on ear replacements as much as they are add-ons to that area.
I'll say some of these, like recording and whatnot, it seems like it'd be a little weird to limit these to the ear.
Mm-hmm.
I see no reason why I can't record someone from something in my shoulder. But I'm sure that'd be easy to just kind of homebrew or house rule in.
Then we have Cyber Jaws, which is exactly what it sounds like. And Cyber Jaws does not have any add-ons. Then we have structural cybernetics. These are ones that are more internal than the ones that we've seen up to this point, and tend to have a lot more downtime and a lot more price tag. Like, for example, the first one we have, which is titanium ribs. You know, if you're doing that, you're gonna have to do some very invasive work to try and get that done for the surgery. So
it's another one I'm kind of giving some glances through this. It's mostly looking again about what you'd expect, and with how kind of very straightforward the information blocks they give you here are, it's very easy to just kind of glance and know what you're getting from each one of these.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very easy to understand and straightforward system.
Yeah.
For formatting everything.
I will... No, I'll hold off on that. But then we have Neuralware, which is a neural frame. And we have a good example of that. Neuralware are for people who want to really dedicate themselves to doing some hacking. Oh, especially since the Cortex lock is pretty much built for that. But there are other options such as neural rigs, which is a kind of option that you can use to really double down on neural-based hacking. And fortunately, as we talked about last week, the hacking system in the Gaia complex does not nearly have the problem that we've seen with hacking systems in some of the bigger names in cyberpunk RPGs.
And that you're not playing your own separate minigame while everyone else is just kind of fiddling with themselves, waiting for you to finish.
Pretty much. Let's see, then we do have Neuralware options. A lot of them are pretty straightforward. Then BioWare. No, not the studio. That's currently gone to shit. But basically biological cyberware. And because of the fact that it's still artificial, you can still go through disconnect. Also, BioWare is very expensive. And much like the more invasive kinds of cyberware, it's going to take a lot more downtime. I mean, it's you're not going to get an afternoon job of replacing your heart, for instance. The other thing is BioWare does not have slots.
Yeah, there's no modifying these ones. Just get what you get.
Mm-hmm. Although I do like the description for the hack job Cyberheart. It's a hack job and it's a heart. There's risky, then there's risky. You do the math.
Yeah.
Especially since...
Yeah, 3D12 plus 3. I think that's probably the biggest disconnect cost we've seen.
Yeah, especially since anytime you get a critical failure on brawn or reflexes when using it, you immediately lose to E. Health doesn't go high. Health doesn't go very high in this system. So losing 2 is quite a blow. So
yeah.
Let's not fuck up.
Like, I'll say it's not devastating, but you don't want that to happen in addition to whatever else is happening on a failed check.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the extra knife in the back.
Well, to reference a friend of mine, I'm not trying to hit a man while he's down. I'm trying to kick him because that's easier. But obviously, then we have implants, which are described as pseudo-cybernetics, in that they're upgrades. Oh, hang up. Hold that thought. I have to deal with a bot. And the bot has been dealt with. Sorry about that, folks. But they can be implemented...
They're basically like minor.
Yeah, they can be implemented without the need of an existing cyber limb. So these are upgrades that don't require an associated cyber limb.
It looks like this is for a lot of your other kind of like smaller upgrades that wouldn't really apply to the big ones, but you'd still want to have in your cyberpunk game.
And because of that, they don't have a whole lot of disconnect. I mean, for example, the Cosmeta line implants, the disconnect is 1. Because, well, it's cosmetic. But then we have exoskeletons, which are described as cybernetic body frames that are bolted directly through the flesh and into the bone.
That sounds painful.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably also why they have a large disconnect and a high cost. So choosing to wear an exoskeleton is beyond a statement. They are used by the most violent and intimidating operators, as well as gang lords, psychotics, and pretty much anyone that wants to make a mess wherever they go. Exoskeletons are not for the faint-hearted and come with a huge risk of disconnect, though the result of being an unstoppable killing machine is usually enough to make the risk worthwhile. You know who would be you know who in Cyberpunk would be a good representative for the power scale of a exoskeleton? Adam Smasher.
I had to try to remember the name. But yeah, that's nuts.
The guy who's more or less a full cyborg, and the only reason he's never gone cyber psycho is because he was already normal psycho.
He never had any humanity to begin with.
Mm-hmm. And, okay, there was one side note. So, all upper body or full exoskeletons allow the user to lift at least double the normal load. Due to the way that exoskeletons are fused to the body, an upper body exoskeleton may not be used by anyone who already possesses a cybernetic arm, and a lower body exoskeleton may not be worn by anyone who already possesses a cybernetic leg. Cybernetic hands and feet may be installed as normal. And I could see someone taking this just so that they can use the heaviest of heavy weapons. So they could walk around carrying, like, not a minigun, a rotary cannon.
Gun.
No, a rotary cannon like you would find on a plane or a ship. Just carrying that around. For maximum burst. I mean, you're slow as hell carrying the thing, but on the other hand, accuracy by volume.
Really, they're running away and you can't catch them on foot. If no matter how far they run, they're still in your firing range.
I think what's also telling is that they have a large amount of slots. Like, 2 of them have 6 slots, and the full Borg chassis has 10. So it's expected that you're going to be loading up, though look at the price on those. Like, the full Borg chassis is 11,590 mech. And I do appreciate that one of them is extra arms, so if you want to go full 4 arms. How's that for a nightmare? Somebody going in with 4 arms, each of them wielding an SMG.
Yeah.
And of course we have EMP shielding, which is mainly there to, make sure your cybernetics don't shut down if you get blasted with an EMP. But then we get to firearms.
Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
I'm counting like 8 extensions. Unless I skipped over one and we have something that has 10 slots. Unless I missed something, do you even have enough options to fill that out?
The way I see it, because of the fact that it's full Borg, I would have it that the options for arm and leg cybernetics can be applicable to exoskeletons, especially since there's some that are basically the same for it.
Yeah, I'd definitely run it that way. Otherwise, every large exoskeleton is basically going to be the same thing. If you're only using exoskeleton mods, because you don't have a whole lot of options.
And that's, of course, assuming that you have the capital to spend on all.
Assuming you have it, yes.
Because the mods specifically for exoskeletons are all really expensive. But obviously, the first thing we have with firearms is handguns. Starting with the SOC-P. Which is a standard pistol that has burst fire. Although there is a rule that it can only be fired by a cybernetic hand. And we have the Diorams XPF 117, which looks... Actually, not the 117, but the PF 112. Is it just me, or does that look a bit like the machine pistol from RoboCop?
A little bit. I was trying to name down which show it looked like it came from. But yeah, RoboCop, that's the one.
But then we have a few others.
Yeah.
I do like that the Western Brig Mini-Cal has a rule that an additional combat round is needed to unjam a Mini-Cal after a critical failure. It is a budget sidearm that's made out of plastic composite, so you get what you pay for. I mean... Let's see, then we move up to submachine guns. With them being pretty standard, most of them having burst and suppressive as their rules. There are differences in damage, clip, and the like. Although, I don't know why, but I really like the look of the MB&C Hailstorm here, which is described as a compact, non-lethal squad support weapon. The reason for the magazine is that apparently is using, instead of using bullets, using 2mm rubber pellets.
Yeah, that's it again at a glance. We don't have any weapons that are really that out there.
Mm-hmm.
This weapon section is pretty simple, basic.
Yeah. There is one thing that I would like to see, but I'll cover that later.
Yeah.
I do like that there is a mini pack missile rifle, which is described as an assault rifle-sized missile launcher. Would that be the closest thing to a bolter? As it is talking about firing 20mm fragmentation missiles. Of course, then we have shotguns. And of course, the first shotgun that they show had to be a pump action.
I mean, obviously. Doesn't matter how far into the future you get, the pump action will always be awesome.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like it's just a featured up version of a Mossberg. And then we have the there's an interesting design with the TOC 9 tactical shotgun. It is a 10 gauge. That's an interesting move. And a trigger system that utilizes that clamps around the uses entire hand and wrist/forearm. But obviously, after shotguns, we move into sniper rifles. I do like the setup here. I believe the image we've got on the bottom of 158 is meant to be the Urban AC-7. And I mainly say that because it's described as a bullpup style semi-automatic sniper rifle. And that does look like a bullpup rifle. Handle's kind of weird, but I expect that kind of thing when it comes to weapons in sci-fi settings. There's always going to be some degree of weirdness. Then we get to heavy weapons. And I do like...
One thing I will point out on snipers, just because I actually think this is a pretty interesting design on the MB&C. It's a sniper that's basically a long-range EMT strike, which I don't think I've seen come up in a Cyberpunk game before, but at the same time, like, that's... Of course someone's developed a long-range EMT sniper rifle to deal with the psychos.
Yeah. But then we have heavy weapons, all of which are considered illegal in New Europe.
Illegal.
But then again, considering what we're dealing with, such as the Dire Arms energy rail, so there's your this is not a rail gun, it's a lightning gun. That always delivers a minimum of 12 damage.
So even if you roll crap, you're still smacking them for 12.
Its damage rate is 3d12 plus 4.
7 is the minimum damage you could possibly roll on this. But that's still going to go to 12.
Yeah. But then we have the M7T Scatter, which is a light machine gun. The GMT SP40 Mark II, which is a grenade launcher. The full pack missile launcher, which is your good old fashioned shoulder fired artillery.
3d12 plus 43d3e.
No, 3d12 plus 4d3 plus 3. And Yeah, that's a bazooka.
Wait, is there supposed to be a space there? Because there isn't, so it reads 3d12 plus 43d3. That can't be right. I think there's
I'm not sure where you're getting the 43 part, because I'm looking at it now. It doesn't show that.
On the GMT full pack missile launcher.
Yeah. 3d12 plus 4d3 plus 3.
43d3.
Look, this is a... I'm just going to copy pasta what it's showing on my end. So, give me... I'm just going to put this in our Valley chat. This is some who's on first shit.
I missed the 3 at the beginning, but that's what's on my thing that you sent me. That is the copy paste.
Yep. But then we have the MB&C full bore, which I think is meant to be a minigun, based on how it's described. And then the Western Brig Entomb L, which is a non-lethal heavyweight net launcher. See, and then we have melee weapons, starting with knives and daggers. The D4 dagger, I know why it's called the D4 because of that shape, but I look at that and I just see a kunai.
Yeah.
And a few others. And the generic...
Swords, because of course.
Mm-hmm. And of course, one of these swords is a katana. In fact, all 3 of them are katanas. Then we have the high SH-88 baton for other melee weapons, a taser baton. The steel core whip, which is exactly what it sounds like. Though whenever these kind of things come up, there's always that one person who asks, "Why would you use a melee weapon when everybody's using firearms?" Well, for one, you'll eventually run out of ammo, and 2, depending on where you are, you may not be able to utilize firearms. But after that, we have a few examples of grenades and explosives, which are pretty self-explanatory. I think the only oddball grenade would be the strobe grenade, which I think is just a futuristic flash grenade.
We do have a flashbang, though.
Mm-hmm. See, then we have personal armor, ranging from bike leathers to plates for exo vests. I do like this little side ad we have for MB&C, Milton Baines and Company. Then miscellaneous equipment, things like firearms accessories, which are exactly what it sounds like. Then melee weapon accessories, most of which are, in fact, all 3 of them are pretty much holsters or scabbards. Then miscellaneous tools and gear. Then we have medical equipment, which is exactly what it sounds like, and that also includes stims that you might need. Then comms, which is self-explanatory. Then clothing. I do find it amusing that it says for trench coat. The trench coat is one of the most valuable purchases a merc can make, and has been a mainstay of merc attire for as long as mercs have been mercs. I mean, Memes aside, it would make sense that a trench coat would be a big deal because, you know, easy to conceal stuff.
But yeah, after that, we got like the hacking gear, your rigs and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I do like the playing. I think those are supposed to be like holographic playing cards or something. At least it looks like it with the lighting. And a sealed glass of whiskey. I really hope he's not holding a couple of aces and a couple of eights in that hand. But you know how it is per the rules of fiction whenever you're dealing with any sort of card playing in a scene. Eventually, the bullets will start flying. But after that, we have the programs that can be loaded into hacking rigs. Some of these we kind of dipped into, and of course, a completely separate setup for biohacking. But I do like that one of the programs is called Malfunction.
Just fuckworm.
Mm-hmm. Of course, after that is personal countermeasures. The things that you use to keep yourself from getting hacked by somebody else's rig. And then other software. We also have drones, which are self-explanatory, I'd say. Then animals for those who are, which is going to be useful for those who are ferals. Though even animals have their own cybernetics. And then we get to vehicles, starting with wheeled vehicles. Which is, you know, self-explanatory. It's got wheels and a seat. And then a few aircraft.
Isn't this coming up often in most games, but here you go.
On one hand, yes. On the other hand, I have used an aircraft to pull the Moon Knight stunt of, oh, you can copy combat styles. We'll parry a fucking helicopter, you fucking casual.
But yeah, then we got a quick bit on rules for like just property accommodation, how much that cost you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that pretty much covers it, unless you saw something interesting worth diving into in that section.
No, the final thing covers a bit of the fluff on ferals and vampires. Vampires are implied to be too powerful for starting PCs. But they and ferals would get a bit more detail in the Violent by Design. Not Violent by Design, right? I gotta check my damn notes. Because there's been a few expansion books in the intervening time between when the Gaia complex originally came out. Okay, Evolution by Design, which also covered robot PCs as well. Robots, ferals, and vampires. And because of the way this thing is set up, vampires are far more violent than what someone might expect. There's a few other things that it covered, but those were the highlights. And if you want even more equipment, there was also the book Hardware 2119, which is more equipment and more guns. But there is the thing about becoming a vampire within the core book. But it outright says players are not permitted to play vampires. because that was initially the plan, that vampirism would be off the table for players. However, something obviously changed. So, with that said, that more or less covers our exploration of the Gaia complex. Now, as far as where I would put it in my my grading system, I'm comfortable putting the Gaia complex as a strongly recommended. This does come with the caveat of, with an understanding of what this is trying to go for. This is going for a very violent type of cyberpunk. If that's not your, as well as a significantly different affair when it comes to its brand of violence. If that isn't your bag, then it's not going to be your bag. But this is doing far too many things right than wrong. Especially given the use of D12s, the very straightforward types of calculation, and most importantly for me, because I've had to deal with this shit in cyberpunk games in the past, I'm not drowning in skill point management.
I think I'd place this firmly in recommend.
Like we had a few.
I'm a little disappointed with just that equipment setup overall. It's not that it's bad. It's just I'd hope there's a bit more here than what we got.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that equipment had been accounted for in 2117. The only thing I would have added personally is some sort of 1 or 2 page spread that has the relevant stats for the different types of weapons, armor, and the like. I mean, the profile cards that they have is neat, but as a GM, I'd like to have that kind of thing right in front of me in a quick reference.
Yeah.
But really, that's the only nitpick I can think of. And while there is a GM screen that is available, one that has a very nice spread, that particular presentation of equipment is the only thing I can really think of adding. All the other stuff is more or less just add-ons or stuff that can easily be handled through a bit of house ruling by a canny GM, which anybody who runs this for more than one session is going to be doing some variation of house ruling as it is.
Yeah. But I'd say it's a good kind. It's not like you're trying to fix some kind of fundamental issue with the game. It's just little things here and there.
The bigger takeaway is that a lot of the things that annoy me with the bigger entries in cyberpunk RPGs are not really present here. Like I already mentioned the skill problem. That's been a repeat annoyance for most of my life when it comes to cyberpunk games. The hacking system has also been an issue at times. And moreover, having games that want to play both sides of the class question. I hate to keep picking on Shadowrun, but it's emblematic of a lot of this problem than a lot of others. You know, where Shadowrun wants to say, "Oh, we're a classless system. You can build whatever you want." In theory, yes. In practice, no. So you can't do that and then have certain archetypes you're building around. You can't have it both ways. Whereas the Gaia complex has its own set of archetypes. They're not full-on classes per se, but they are a direction to build around. and it's easier to build around in this one because you don't have to deal with as many point management setups. I mean, when it comes to skills, for example, the big thing was, do you have the skill or do you not? That's it.
Because I find myself without any like really strong opinions on this one. Because you're like, it's very well made, simple, presentation's nice. Like I can find some nitpicks here and there, but nothing bad. But it doesn't really grab me. But I realize that's just entirely me. It is still just a well-made system. If you're looking for a cyberpunk that's a lot more simplified than some of the other big ones, you'll probably have a lot of fun with this game.
I would say this is a middle ground when it comes to its crunch, because if somebody really wants to go into the simplified, they could obviously go with one of the PBTA projects like the Sprawl or something like that.
Yeah.
This is...
I'm just saying, like, more simple than, like, a lot of the others, like the Cyberpunk and the Shadowrun, because those are very sprawling, complex systems.
Yeah.
This is not that. It's certainly not just a simple throw it together, beer and pretzels type thing.
No.
But it's going to be a lot more simplified than the big ones.
That's why I make the Goldilocks analogy.
Yeah.
Not too crunchy, not too simple, just right. But that, I believe, is going to do it for this particular episode and season of the Valley of the Judged. We will be back here next week with our usual in-betweener, this time covering Chronica Feudalis. And I can promise you, unlike the last time we did a one-shot that dealt with historical fiction, this is an actual game. No, I'm not letting that go.
Oh, Monstiger. What a bizarre episode.
I don't know why you end up getting the weird ones every time I spin the wheel.
No. I don't know. It's just me.
And again, you do seem to have a habit of finding new and interesting ways to self-jinx, so... So maybe it's that. But, with that said, after next week, we'll be delving into our next full season of the Valley of the Judged, covering something I technically covered this month, but I'm covering its OG version, sort of. So next week, tune in for Chronica Feudalis, and in 2 weeks, tune in for Titan Effect. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.